Select this guy. Put this back. Don't freak out. There we go. Okay. Alrighty, can everybody hear me at the back there? All good? Okay, so I don't need to use the microphone? Okay, perfect. So today we'll just talk a little bit about how to use Bootstrap and create a theme in Drupal 8. This is all relatively new to me as well, so there may well be some questions that you have that I may not be able to answer. A little bit about myself. I'm a senior engineer at Acquia. I've been there since 2011. I maintain www.acquia.com and a whole bevy of other sites. I do pretty much everything, site building, theming, backend, writing modules. Now I've just attended the talk on how to write Drupal 8 modules, so I'm proficient in that as well now. I started way back with 4.7 Drupal, back in the good old days. My second site I built was multilingual, so it was a kind of dropping in the deep end on the Drupal side. And my PHP experience really comes from Drupal. I have no formal training in PHP, so the whole new Drupal 8 object-oriented stuff is pretty new to me and a little scary, to be honest. Some of the things we're going to talk about today, obviously installing a new Bootstrap theme, creating a sub-theme from Bootstrap, how you name stuff, doing some customization to the sub-theme files. We're going to use Sass for doing our CSS stuff, because that's going to give you a good example of how to override variables from Bootstrap, which is going to save a lot of time and energy in a lot of your theming stuff. We're going to have a look at template overrides, just a basic idea of how template overriding is going to work in Drupal 8. Mostly it's going to be the same as Drupal 7, but there are obviously some differences, seeing as you're not using PHP a template anymore, you're using Twig. And hopefully we'll have enough time to look at some more fancy stuff, Bootstrap layouts, using display suite and panels as well. Alrighty, so let's start. First step, installing Bootstrap module or Bootstrap theme. All you have to do is download and install the Bootstrap theme, which is on Drupal.org, project Bootstrap, put it into your theme folder. We no longer use sites all themes. Straight into your theme folder. If you're a Drush user, wherever you are in your Drupal install, just run drush dl bootstrap and it's done. Otherwise, you have to download the tar or zip file and decompress it into your theme folder. Make sure that your folder structure is going to be theme/bootstrap. Once you have that installed, we want to create a sub-theme, and we do that by using the starter kit of your choice. In the Bootstrap folder, you're going to have starter kits, and inside that folder, there's three subfolders. There's Sass, there's Less, which is another compiler for CSS, and then there's CDN, which basically is the simplest thing, but doesn't really give you some of the more powerful features that I like to use. So basically, you should have the following structure. Themes, Bootstrap is the main Bootstrap theme. You never touch that. You never edit anything in there. It just sits there and provides all the basic stuff for you. You'll have another subfolder. In this case, it's DC Utah. And that's a copy of whatever starter kit you chose. In my case, I chose the Sass starter kit. I've used Sass for a while. I prefer it to Less. And I believe Drupal is moving more towards the Sass type of stuff rather than less. Obviously, if you're going to use Sass or less, you need all these compiler requirements. There's Node.js, there's Ruby, there's Compass, there's Grunt, there's Gulp, whatever other thing people come up with these days. There's numerous ways to do it. I'm not going to go into how to set those up. You can find that all by Google. I have Compass myself. I've used Grunt and Gulp before. I just find Compass really simple and it works on my system. Alrighty, so once you've copied your starter kit folder, you've given it your theme name, you need to rename a couple of files in that folder. The 5 that we have listed there, that's what they look like when you first go in there, and you got to rename them and edit a couple of them. So theme name, you change to whatever your theme name is. So DC Utah. The one tricky part is starter kit. The word starter kit has to be changed to info so that your theme will actually be detected by Drupal. There's a couple of edits within that file that we need to do, hence I wrote edit next to it. Theme name, you change all that to DC Utah. Alrighty, so your info YAML file, YML is pronounced YAML, is basically the new theme.info file. The structure is a little bit different to what we're used to in Drupal 7. Theme title, whatever you want to call your theme. Description, whatever description you like to see on your appearance page. And then you need to change the 2 theme name bits of text down at the bottom to DC Utah. It's got to match your theme so that then it'll find your CSS files and your scripts. They use a new thing called libraries, and it's a separate file, and that's going to list out all your CSS and JavaScript files. There's another file called schema YAML. Again, the 2 things that are in bold, you need to just edit those. Theme name is going to match DC Utah. Theme title can be whatever piece of text you want. Okay, so let's have a quick look at what those should look like. Okay, good. So here's the YAML file that I created. So I just, name was the one thing I changed. Description, I pretty much just left the same. And you'll see at the bottom, libraries, DC Utah. Okay, so the libraries YAML file, as you can see, it's been renamed. It has, by default, all the stuff is already for you. You don't have to do anything here for the moment. List your main style sheet and all the Bootstrap JavaScript files. If you don't want certain Bootstrap files to load, you can just delete them from here or comment them out. Schema file, your theme name, and theme title. I just did the same thing. All right. If anyone wants these slides afterwards, just let me know, and it'll probably be on the website anyway for the camp. Okay, so once you've edited all these files, your theme, if you actually enable your theme, it's not going to look like anything because you still need to install the Bootstrap source files from the Bootstrap website itself. And this is only needed if you're going to be using less or Sass. So you got to go to getbootstrap.com, download, in my case, the Sass source files. They have 3 buttons on their site. Make sure you get the right thing. So you're going to download it into your themes folder. So you'll have themes, DC Utah /bootstrap. Make sure you don't have /bootstrap/bootstrap. That's not going to work then. If you want to go super simple, the CDN starter kit literally has a single style CSS file that you can edit, and you don't have to really pay attention to anything else. It's super simple, but like I said, it doesn't give you a lot of power, and it just, I don't like anymore doing stuff in one CSS file. It's too big and bulky, and splitting stuff up for me is a much better way to go. Alrighty. Okay, so we've installed our Bootstrap source files. you go look at your theme and it's like, well, where's all my styling? You have to compile everything first. So whatever compiler you're using, run it, and it will actually then generate your final CSS file. Obviously, Drupal doesn't understand what a SCSS file is. It needs just straight CSS. What happened in my case is with Compass, there's this, you can create a config.rb file, which is a Ruby file, and you can specify where style sheets are going to go, all this kind of stuff. I didn't do that, and then so Compass looks for a particular structure. I had to rename an SCSS folder to SAS, and I needed to change the generated style sheet from CSS style to style sheets style. And that was done in that libraries YAML file where it lists style sheets, and JavaScript just had to edit that. Clear all your caches, and in Drupal 8 you're going to be clearing caches a lot. Once you do all that, you actually get a site that looks like basic Bootstrap. So we're good to go with all that stuff. You can enable your theme, have a look at it. It looks kind of, you know, regular Bootstrap, nothing fancy. Also, you're going to find that your blocks are going to be positioned in these odd places. I think most of the stuff gets thrown into the header for some odd reason. You know, so go to block layout, move your blocks, delete the blocks you don't want. Usual kind of basic setup stuff. Okay, so Bootstrap in the appearance menu is going to have a whole bunch of settings that you can customize. You can do cool things like, if you want a full width site the whole time, switch container fluid on. By default, it's obviously going to have a responsive display up until max width, and then it's going to just stay in the middle of the page. And I think it's around 1200 pixels. By default, responsive images option is turned on. So what that does is any image that's on your page is going to be responsive. It's pretty cool to have that if you're starting out with a new theme. So, for example, if you have a thumbnail of 200 pixels on a blog listing, got thumbnail in your text, and you resize the whole page down, that thumbnail will actually resize down. If you turn responsive images off, that thumbnail stays at 250 pixels. So when you've got smaller text, it kind of overlaps your text. So depending on how your CSS gets set up. If you're updating a theme, this is something that happened with me. With the older Bootstrap version, image responsive was off by default, and then when you upgraded, I think it was 3.10, they turned it on, and I'd already accounted for all this image resizing, so that kind of threw my designs off a little bit, so I had to switch it off again. So just be aware of how you're doing stuff. If you're upgrading, you might have to come in and tweak some of these settings. If it's a brand new site, the defaults generally are going to work pretty well. There's some JavaScript stuff for popovers and tooltips. So if you're hovering over things, you get these cute little pop-ups, not the default sort of browser styled stuff. They do have a hit on performance. So if you don't want them or you don't really need them, just disable those two guys. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like. This is the basic site. No real styling, just straight Bootstrap. So if you go to appearance, you go to settings, you got all your themes here, and note that Bootstrap is enabled. You have to enable the Bootstrap theme along with your sub theme. So let's just go to our sub theme, and hopefully this loads. There we go. So lots of things you can play around with in here. So container, fluid container was the one option I mentioned. Images, responsive images. JavaScript, you're going to have popovers, tooltips. I've disabled those. Some of the components are kind of cool. If you want to just change your nav bar, so the top menu, I've selected inverse nav bar style fixed at the top. Okay, so if we look at that, what it does is it gives you this black bar at the top. You can't see it on this scroll, but if you actually scroll your page down, that black bar stays at the top. If you want the default, it's just going to be normal. Save that. And go back to the home page. That's what it looks like. It's kind of this gray, ugly thing. And my screen is too big. That's why it looks weird. Oh, still too big. Okay, so there we go. All right, so lots of settings in there. It's kind of nice that you can change a bunch of this stuff through the UI. Makes it a lot easier for some of the more simple things. Okay. So when you have a Bootstrap theme, there's a whole bunch of extra modules that are kind of useful. The two ones that I find the most useful, and I pretty much I'm going to install on every site, is field group module and field formatter class module. What they do is field group allows you to group fields for display. So when you're outputting, say, a blog node, you want your image, pulled over to the left, and you want a margin thrown on the right of it so that the text doesn't butt up right against it. Field group, you can wrap you can add a field that's going to wrap your image, whatever stuff else you want. Field formatter class, what it's going to do is it's going to allow you to add classes all through the UI to your fields. So you can add pull left, which is the Bootstrap class for floating something to the left. You can add your own custom class for margin right, which is what I like to do. And then we'll just throw a margin on there. And you literally have no styling to do. These are all mostly pre-made styles. You don't have to really do anything. So with just a couple of modules, you can actually design, a large portion of your site without writing a single line of code. The other stuff is, you can see I've got an example here of col SM4 and col SM8. Those are the grid classes that Bootstrap uses. By default, Bootstrap has a 12-column grid. So a 4 would be, a third of the page, 8 would be 2/3 of the page, and they'd float up against each other. So you'd have a 2-column layout without having to write any CSS to do that. Let me give you a quick example of what that's going to look like. So if we go to content types, article, manage display. I really only use these for display. There's no real point in using them for anything else. You could do them on the form as well. But then you'd need to switch your admin theme to a Bootstrap theme. So just pay attention to that. So actually, let me see. I think blog I did this. No, okay. So we could add field group, add a group. And field group gives you a whole bunch of different options. There's accordion. These are just standard stuff. In Drupal 7, there was a Bootstrap field group module, or field group Bootstrap, and it actually gave you a whole bunch of Bootstrap layouts here, which is kind of cool. So you could have all these, the accordion stuff. You could have nav bar kind of layouts. It was pretty cool. Mostly, I'm going to just use HTML. Let's just call it row, or let's do left. Save. That's a div, and you can just add the class here. You're going to say pull left. So here's my left group. I can throw it up there. Put image underneath it. Save that. And then what that's going to do is then, when I have an image in my article node, it's just going to slide it off to the left. If I want, specifically, I could add classes to other elements. Field formatter class, you can put whatever class you want in here. Margin left. And you can stack classes as well, margin right. Because margin classes are ones I normally add, so they're not actually going to have any effect on this in this demo. So that's basically where you're going to do all that kind of stuff. So it's really cool for site builders. They don't have to know any CSS. You kind of have to know a few CSS classes, but once you have those classes known, the rest is pretty easy. Okay. So customizing your theme, this is where the fun really gets going. Because I used the Sass starter kit, everything is going to be in the SCSS folder, which I had to rename SAS because of Compass. Depending on how your setup is, you can probably work with it just as is. Bootstrap stores all its stuff in the component folder, and everything's .scss. There's a file, one main file called _overrides SCSS. And what that does is it aggregates all those component files. So what you can do is you can add new component files. You have to then go to overrides file, add your new component to that, and then recompile, and your new styles will then get added to your style sheet. Okay. Bootstrap has a bunch of default variables. This is I really like this part of Bootstrap, and there's one of the reasons I use a compiler. Bootstrap by default has all these variables for things like, colors of buttons, colors of links, tables. Pretty much everything is in there as a variable. And because you're using a compiler, you can then override those variables by just editing your own file called default variables SCSS. So for example, brand primary is their main sort of color. It gets used by links further on, so you can reuse variables for different styles. If we want to switch that thing, all we need to do is add brand primary, the new color we want, to our default variables file, and it overrides whatever Bootstrap is. You recompile everything, and every element that used brand primary is suddenly your new color. One line of code, you change the entire color scheme of your site. So let me give you a quick show of that. Okay, so in themes DC Utah, there is SAS default variables. So brand primary right now is this blue color, which is the aqua blue color. So let's go to the home page. All the links actually use brand primary. So let's change this to red. That should be red. There we go. Compass watch. Hopefully Compass sees a change. There we go. It writes it out. And in theory, clear all caches. And in theory, it changes everything to red when it eventually clears all the caches. There we go. So that's literally, you changed one HTML code and every single link on your entire site changes to red. If you look at Bootstrap, where was that file? Bootstrap asset style sheets, Bootstrap variables. Okay. Assets style sheets. See, that's why I write it down, because I'm never going to remember that. Let's go to variables. Where are you? So this is the variables file for Bootstrap. So you can see there is a whole lot of stuff in here. Font sizes for H1, H2, etc., etc. Headings, it's tables, buttons, which is probably one of the things that most people like to change. But yeah, you got a ton of stuff. So if you're looking at changing an element on your site, instead of writing out a whole bunch of CSS to change a particular element, have a look in here to see if the variable exists, number one. And usually they're pretty well labeled, so you know what it is. Just add that variable to your default variables file, change it to the color, or change the styling that you want it to have. And half the time it's going to be a simple matter of just doing that, and you're good. Okay. Alrighty. So, okay, template overriding. Something most of us have done in Drupal 7. And it's pretty much the same procedure. You find the twig file, in this case, instead of the TPL file, which was in Drupal 7. You find that file, you copy it into your theme, and you make your changes. Bootstrap the main Bootstrap theme comes with a whole lot of these twig files already done, so that it's already overriding Drupal to use Bootstrap stuff. So look in the Bootstrap theme, see if that template file already exists, copy it into your sub-themes folder and create a templates folder, and you can have subfolders in templates folder if you want to group stuff nicely. Bootstrap does that. If the template file isn't there, go have a look in the module that outputs whatever you want to change. Most of the time we're going to be changing stuff in views. So core modules, views, templates, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Once you have it in your sub-theme, edit the file as you wish, as you need, clear the caches, and you should be good. I'm going to give you a quick example. That'll be for time. Good. So sometimes, I regularly want to create a new region. So what I'm going to change is I need to change the page HTML twig file, which used to be page TPL. That has your main structure in it for the whole page, except obviously header stuff, which is in HTML twig. So Bootstrap provides me a file of that. So it's in Bootstrap template system page HTML. I'm going to add my new region code. I want to call it above content, and I'm going to stick it right above the content region. And if I remember correctly, that comes below the title. I'll double check when we look at the code. So that's the code we're going to use. And that goes into the HTML twig file. I always do an if page, because you're in page. If the region has some stuff in it, then output it. Otherwise, if it has no region, no content, it's not going to output anything. That way you don't end up with like these random divs and stuff sitting around that are just empty. Once you've added that to your to your twig file, you need to tell your info YAML file that you have this new region. And I like to put stuff where it's going to appear in the code. So above content, I want it above the content region. So I just add it right in that same spot in the info YAML file. I'm not 100% sure if it makes a difference if you just throw it anywhere. I don't think it makes any difference. But, I just like to be consistent, and then when I'm looking for it, I know where it is. And then you can go to clear all your caches, obviously. Then you go to block layout, and you're going to have this new region. Let me show you what that looks like. So here's the page HTML twig file. Here's our main content. Adding the above content, you got help above that, action links, breadcrumb. Okay, I don't see title, so it must be in the content area. If you look at the website, you go to structure block layout. You're going to scroll down, and here's your above content region. I think that the info YAML position affects where it is on this page. It's obviously not going to have any effect on the output because that depends on where you put it in the page HTML twig file. So info YAML, here is the above content region that I added in. So that's a very simple example of a template override, and you can do that for pretty much anything. Let me show you real quick. In Bootstrap. Templates. So here's all the Bootstrap template files. There's block, whole lot of block options. Oh, yeah, you can see that. Okay. System. There's a ton of templates in there, so always look in there first. And there's even a few for views. There's a lot more in the actual views core module. Okay. Something else we regularly do is pre-process. The cool thing is Bootstrap allows you to use the old Drupal 7 pre-process stuff. So pre-process page, pre-process HTML, those are all going to work. If you want to do it the new way, the Drupal 8 way, you do this kind of, the whole auto load stuff, source, plugin, preprocess, page.php, and put your preprocess stuff in there. You can actually use both if you want. What happens, plugins get run first, then your theme file, which is the old template PHP file, that gets run after the plugins. So if you look, here's my theme file. It has preprocess HTML, preprocess page, and I'm just doing stuff like adding classes. And that works just like it did in Drupal 7. If you want to do the fancy way, where is that? So it's just down. So we're going to have source. I did have that. Apparently I don't have it anymore. Ah, there it is. Okay. So this is what the new way of pre-processing looks like. Honestly, it's a little scary because you've got all these use things. The cool thing is Bootstrap already has all this stuff. You just copy and paste. And the documentation is really good on this, on how to do it. But it's a lot more code to simply add a class. But this is the way that Drupal 8 is going. So probably best practice to do that. Okay, so some of the cooler things for Bootstrap. These are some extra modules that we have. Bootstrap layouts, really nice. It provides layouts for things like views, for display suite, and for panels. So you don't have to go and manually create all these things, add in manually the Bootstrap classes. These things are already done for you. It's pretty cool module. There are some caveats in how the whole thing works. We've got 10 minutes. So I just did a test with Display Suite. I'm not a panels fan. I've always liked Display Suite. So what it does is when you go to the Manage Display for a content type, you get this new option right at the bottom that says Layout, and you can choose from a different layout. So I'll show you that in a sec. Once you've chosen the layout, you get all these new regions that match the positions on this layout, and you can just position your fields for that content type in those regions, save, and your whole page changes all through the UI. You don't have to type a single line of code. The nice thing with Display Suite is it also gives you extra fields for title, submitted by author, a whole bunch of other things, and you don't have to pre-process anything to make those fields available. Display Suite's already done it for you. So let's go have a quick look at that. Structure, content type, blog. So manage display. So what I've done, let me go, none. I'm just going to show you what it looks like by default. So this is your regular display for a blog content type, which has got a body, an image, and a category. You got links, body, image, category fields. That's it. So you see the new layout here. Bootstrap gives you 1 column, 2 column. Doesn't matter what you choose, whatever you prefer. Let's take 2 column bricked, for example. It gives you a quick display of what it's going to look like. 2 column stacked. You can, do whatever you want, even up to 4 columns. It also, Display Suite has their own set of layouts, but because we're talking about Bootstrap, we're only going to choose the Bootstrap one. So let's choose this guy. Nice complicated one. Hit save. Now you see top left, top right, middle, bottom left, bottom right, bottom. So those are all new regions that you have. All your fields are automatically disabled, but you see there's a whole ton of extra fields in here. You got title, submitted by, the date it was posted, the actual author, all these extra things. Sure, some of them you're probably never going to use, but they're there. So you can then drag all these things around, position them where you want. hit save, and then your page is going to change completely. So let's just do that real quick. A couple minutes. Let's go to node 1. So that's article. Okay, never mind. But yeah, basically you can, by changing that layout, you can make this display with your image on the left, body on the right, submitted by, you can reposition those things wherever you want. And it's all done through the UI, and you don't have to write anything. Okay. So these are all awesome tools for site builders. Okay, so I was going to do a demo of panels as well, but it turns out panels did an update to 4.1, and they're switching panels to not use Bootstrap, or not use layout plugin, which is a dependency of Bootstrap layouts. They're switching to layout discovery, which is an experimental module in core. So that literally just blew up my entire demo site, and I was like, okay, how do I fix this? Also note, I needed to upgrade to Bootstrap Layouts 5.x. I was using 4. So I'm not going to demo anything, but it's basically the same kind of concept. When you're creating a panel or a page display for something, you get all those same kind of layouts. So finally, as a bonus tip from that little panels experience is how to manually remove a module. Because I couldn't do it with Drush, I couldn't do it any other way other than manually editing stuff. And unfortunately, you have to edit the database directly. This is exactly how to do it. It's a little scary. If you have one character incorrect, you're probably going to tank your entire site. But yeah, useful little tip that I discovered. I like doing stuff manually. It used to be really easy in Drupal 7 to disable a module, go to system table, status is 0, done. Simple. It's a lot more complicated, but at least it's doable. And that's pretty much it. As a quick 45-minute overview of Bootstrap. There's a ton more in there, obviously. These are links to pretty much everything I spoke about. There's more and more stuff coming. Like I mentioned, there's field group Bootstrap, which I've used in Drupal 7 to give you some extra output for field groups. I've done things where I've got a field group with nested field groups with fields nested in that, and that literally just outputted a horizontal nav bar, which is like quick links between things. Made life real simple just by using those modules. And that's pretty much it. So we have a few minutes for questions, and then it's going to be lunch. And I was told to remind people that there's going to be a drawing at the end of the day for some goodies. So that's it. Thank you. All right, so questions? Anybody? Oh, yes, at the back.
Would you mind showing us, like, so we have a lot of users who like to change the design of their page all of the time. How easy would it be to allow them to do that?
Right. So the way that I've usually addressed that is by, so this is when they're creating content?
Yes.
Okay, so I haven't used panels, so I'm sure there's an easy way in panels to do it. Usually done it is, I add a field and I say, you know, what layout do you want? I give them like options, and this is just a regular field, like a, you know, select list or checkbox field, in Drupal 7 at least. And then what I do is I pre-process on that, and I can switch layouts by whatever option they take. I think panels has a way that they can actually just choose the panel layout directly in the node edit form, and it switches that without you having to write any pre-process stuff. I'm not sure if Display Suite actually does that. I've never tried that. It's possible Display Suite can do that as well. But I know panels, I'm pretty sure panels has a way to do it. But you know, the way I've normally done it, and I'm a very manual, I don't like all these extra things. So I will just pre-process, check that field, you know, whatever option they choose, then you switch the layout. Yes. Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's see, edit. I don't think display suite shows anything here. Nope. There might be another module that allows display suite to throw stuff onto the edit form and to select, yeah. So maybe. Oh, here we go. Switch view mode. That's it. That's what you want. Okay. Anything else? Cool. Okay. It's lunch, everybody. Let's see. Content. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there we go. So there's display settings in display suite. Cool. Okay.